This is another two-part lecture, this time discussing survey methods. In the first part of this lecture, I'll give some background as I usually do, give some terminology as well, and speak generally about survey methods. And then the second part of this lecture, I'll get a little more practical and give you some basic tips. For example, some pitfalls to avoid when you're using survey methods in your research. And so that'll be the basic layout for this lecture. Okay. First, the basic notion behind this methodology, right? So we have this methodology called surveying. The survey method, the basic idea, as I note here, is that you're trying to figure out a way to measure your variables. Okay, you're trying to measure your variables. That seems really straightforward. Of course, it's much harder in practice than it sounds in theory. If you have two variables, right? Most of you do. You're studying the relationship between variable x and variable y. Maybe it's inequality in health. Maybe it's a support group, the effectiveness of a support group, and the impact that it has on socio-emotional development. And so you want to capture those variables, right? You want to capture those variables by asking your participants related questions. Okay, you're going to ask them questions, and then and later on, you'll be able to analyze their relationship, typically statistically, right? The relationships between those variables. Okay. Typically, when we say the term survey, we're referring to one of two different types here. So we've got the standard questionnaire, okay, and this is what we think of when, if any of you are maybe planning to, send out a form, right? Or let's say, you're going to sit down. If we were face to face, you might sit down at lunchtime with the students at your school, and then you pass out the survey. You let them fill it out themselves, and then they return it to you when they get finished. This is what we mean by questionnaire. Okay, that's one form of a survey. The other form of a survey is interview. Okay, you can ask questions either through paper or by face-to-face, right? Using just face-to-face interaction. And so the interview then, there's three different types here that we note: unstructured, structured, and semi-structured. Unstructured, that's it's like an open-ended conversation. You allow opportunities for probing, for clarifying questions. The questions aren't preset necessarily. Okay, they aren't predetermined. That's what we mean by unstructured. You have structured on the other end of that continuum, where all the questions are laid out ahead of time. The order in which you ask the question should be the same. It should be standardized, right? It should be uniform across all your different participants. The way in which you ask the questions themselves, right? The questions that should be the same. In fact, you try to control the setting as much as possible. In some cases, in some experiments, people wear the same thing when they ask the questions to the participants, and so that's on the highly structured side. And then you have things in between, which we call semi-structured. One example might be if you just basically have certain topics in mind, right? Maybe you have 10 to 20 research questions in mind, but then maybe you group those according to topic, and you have maybe 5 or 6 different topics. And so you have basic topics that you want to cover, but then the questions aren't predetermined. You leave those conversations kind of open. Okay. Technically speaking, survey method is distinguished from program evaluation, right? Because in program evaluations, there's usually some intervention or treatment that's manipulated, right? You introduce the treatment, sometimes you take it away, and then reintroduce it, right? But technically speaking, in survey methodology, this is not intervention research typically, but the caveat is you can use surveys, right? You can use surveys in outcome-based evaluation research if you're trying to measure some outcome, right? You may be trying to capture those outcomes using survey methodology. Okay, just a note here. So surveys are conducted both cross-sectionally and longitudinally. We talked before about the different types of longitudinal designs, that is trend studies, cohort studies, and panel studies. And of course, that was referring to whether you're following the same group of people, exact same group of people over time, which in that case is a panel study, or if you're capturing multiple cross sections, right, different people each time, in which case that's a trend study, and then you have something in between, the cohort study. Okay. You can think through some of the advantages and disadvantages of using questionnaires versus the interview format in the way of surveys, right? Depending on your internship and depending on your research questions and purposes, your pros and cons will have a different balance. But basically speaking, with questionnaires, they can be easy to administer, right? You can imagine, you just pass the surveys out or you email those surveys out. And you get back what you do, right? So it can be somewhat simple. It can be somewhat straightforward. There's no opportunity to clarify necessarily. No opportunity to probe deeper within each question and response, right? So yeah, you have your different pros and cons. Of course, interviews. You can sit down and get deeper responses if you're wanting the person to elaborate on their responses. Right, the self-administered questionnaire is probably not the format that you want to use, and in some cases, really, you end up using both. Right, you end up using both surveys, a questionnaire, which is followed up by an interview. That format is acceptable too. Okay. When we think about what constitutes a good survey or a good instrument, these are the basic characteristics here: non-reactivity. That refers to, you've talked about. The Hawthorne effect, I think, probably in different classes, right? That is, people's tendency to give you responses that you want to hear, or maybe they change their responses or they change their behavior just because of the fact that they're being observed or they're being questioned, right? So you want an instrument that's not going to elicit that type of reaction, okay? Or you want to, interview the person in a way that doesn't elicit those types of reactions if you're using the interview method. High utility. I mean, you have to put yourself in the perspective of both the researcher and the participant, right? In terms of thinking about what's useful. Utility is synonymous with usefulness, right? You want an instrument that's useful. So for the researcher, some practical considerations might be, well, is it easy to score, right? One of the first things you want to do with a survey is to figure out how you're actually going to score that survey. And so, if it's convoluted, if it's really hard to score, then that's going to take a lot of time. It's going to take a lot of time to score that survey, and so maybe not as useful as other instruments out there. And you also have to put yourself in the shoes of the participants that are filling out the questions, right? Are the questions easy to answer, right? These are questions of utility. And then, sensitivity here, this next point, really has to do with, it's really a more complex issue than, what I'm going to say here, but sensitivity has to do with whether the instrument is actually picking up the effect that you're wanting to measure. Okay, this is related to a concept called statistical power, where you can actually calculate. There's a calculation that you can do to figure out how many people you actually need for your study to be able to detect the effects that you're looking for in your study. Now, that can get more complicated, but essentially the point is you want instruments that are very highly sensitive, that capture those those ideas or those variables that you have in mind. Okay, and then of course we're talking about reliability and validity. Those terms you've surely talked about before. Just a quick note here. So let me provide just a quick analogy. Okay. So in the way of reliability, what we mean by reliability is that you have an instrument that's consistent. Essentially, that's consistent. If you have 10 items on that instrument, and it's it has to do with self-esteem, you want to make sure that all 10 items are consistently capturing self-esteem, right? Validity is a different idea, right? Validity is is a related point, but it's capturing. You want to make sure that those 10 items, for example, if you have 10 items on your survey, you want to make sure that it's accurately capturing the construct that you have in mind. Now, that might sound a little bit like reliability, but the fact is that with reliability, you can have a reliable measure that's not valid, but if you have a valid measure, that measure is also reliable. Now, if I could draw this, that would be more helpful. But think of a bullseye. Anybody play darts ever? Think of trying to hit that bullseye. What I mean when I say that you can have a reliable measure that's not valid, but a valid measure must be reliable, is that you can be really consistent in the way that you throw darts, right? You can be really consistent and hit one of the four quadrants, right? Usually with darts, you have four quadrants. You have the upper left, the upper right, bottom left, and bottom right. You can be really consistent. That is, you can be really reliable. Okay, in other words, related to your survey could be capturing some phenomenon very consistently, but it could be off, right? You could be consistently capturing, the notion of, let's say, happiness as opposed to self-esteem, right? In which case, that instrument is showing reliability, but not validity. But if you're throwing those perfect bullseyes, right, over and over again, and this is referring to each question item on your survey, right? If it's hitting those bullseyes, that bullseye every single time, then we know that that's both accurate, that's valid in other words, and it's consistently capturing that bullseye, which is to say that it's also reliable. Okay, so that's the basic logic behind reliability and validity.